Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today it's all about Steve Howe, one of the most unique guitar players of all time. While he was absolutely a virtuoso, I think there were other elements of his approach that made him unique even among the company of other virtuosos. And I would say that it's because in an age of rock pioneers, when everyone was trying to outdo each other in terms of a unique sound, more effects, more sort of weird and different guitars, Steve Howe remained relatively loyal to a clean, hollow-bodied sound. And even though he ended up amassing a number of highly interesting and collectible guitars, he was someone who always tended to keep his sound very clean. The sound that Steve Howe produced was really all in the fingers. It wasn't in the effects, it wasn't in the production, it wasn't in the gimmicks. And that might seem kind of weird because prog rock was all about the sound, playing with the sound palette, new and interesting gimmicks. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a really good way because I love expanding the sound palette, doing different things, making a guitar sound like something else. All of this is what makes prog rock. And that's why it's something of an interesting irony that someone who remained very pure to the values of the guitar that he grew up on, the kinds of things like Wes Montgomery, the kinds of things like Les Paul, the very sort of organic style where just either acoustic playing or just plug in straight into an amp without any fanfare with a hollow body. That was the kind of guitar that Steve Howe admittedly listened to growing up. And that was the way he played, even in a rock and roll world that was straying ever further from that. Now, this was a style that was remarkably consistent, and people say, well, he got so many interesting sounds out of his instruments over the years, and that's also the point. It wasn't about one or two guitars with a lot of effects, it was about a number of guitars, again, many of them hollow bodied, and he was letting the instrument and the way that he physically played it speak for itself. And that's where the unique sounds were coming from. They were coming from Steve and his interaction with the guitars themselves. And he remains going strong. He's still part of Yes. He still does a lot of solo albums. He's done jazz stuff. He's done acoustic stuff that's some a bit flamenco, a bit folk, a bit jazz, a bit of everything. But it's always Steve Howe. Even when he entered the world of sort of pop rock in the 80s with Asia, a very talented band, he remained relatively true to his sound, which is not, if you thought that was hard in the 70s, it was even harder in the 80s. But even in Asia, his solos were Steve Howe solos played on Steve Howe types of guitars in a Steve Howe way. Truly an excellent musician, and he's still got it. So if he's in your town, why not give him a look-see? Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.